The 30-bedroom sanctuary of the Royal Lodge, a sprawling and majestic Grade II listed residence nestled within the verdant confines of Windsor Great Park, is no longer the fortress of solitude it once was for Prince Andrew and his former wife, Sarah Ferguson. The walls of this historic estate are witnessing the final crumbling chapters of what was once hailed as the most successful divorce in the history of the British monarchy, as the dark and unrelenting shadows of the Jeffrey Epstein scandal finally breach the palace gates. The era of the world's most friendly divorced couple is not just fading, it is being systematically dismantled by the pressures of international law enforcement, a tightening royal budget, and the looming threat of a tell-all revelation that could shake the very foundations of King Charles III's reign. Hello, dear viewers, and thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the shifting sands of the House of Windsor. Before we unravel the complex web of loyalty, scandal, and the potential for a rogue duchess, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. Your support allows us to continue bringing you the most detailed and thoughtful analysis of the stories shaping our world today. For nearly 30 years, the Duke and Duchess of York have defied the traditional expectations of a divorced couple. Since their official separation in 1992 and their subsequent divorce in 1996, Andrew and Sarah, familiarly known as Fergie, have maintained a domestic arrangement that many found baffling yet strangely admirable. They shared a roof, they raised their daughters, Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie, and they presented a united front to a world that often looked on with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. This iconic duo seemed to have found a way to navigate the treacherous waters of post-marital life within the royal fishbowl, maintaining a bond that appeared unbreakable despite the various scandals that had plagued them over the decades. To understand the sheer scale of the Royal Lodge is to understand the lifestyle the Yorks are so desperate to cling to. This is not merely a house, it is a mini palace. Spread across 98 acres of the Windsor estate, it boasts a swimming pool, a private chapel, and separate staff quarters. It was the beloved home of the Queen Mother for over 70 years, and when Andrew moved in following her death in 2002, he signed a 75-year lease with the Crown Estate. This lease, however, came with a heavy price tag: the obligation to maintain the historic structure to the highest standards. With the Duke's income effectively severed following his withdrawal from public life, the financial burden of this upkeep has become a central point of contention in the ongoing siege of Royal Lodge. However, according to the esteemed royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliams, those days of harmonious cohabitation and mutual protection have reached an abrupt and perhaps permanent end. In a recent revealing conversation with GB News, Fitzwilliams pointed out that we are currently witnessing a very substantial change in the dynamic between the Duke and Duchess. The image of the world's most friendly divorced couple is being replaced by a much more stark and desperate reality. The catalyst for this tectonic shift is, unsurprisingly, the catastrophic aftermath of the Jeffrey Epstein drama, a scandal that has not only tarnished Prince Andrew's reputation beyond repair, but has also sent shockwaves through international law enforcement and the global media. The Epstein affair, which has seen Andrew stripped of his military affiliations and royal patronages, has created a vacuum of power and influence around the Duke, as the legal and social consequences of his past associations continue to unfold. The protective umbrella that the monarchy once provided has been folded up and put away. King Charles III, in his quest for a slimmed-down and more fiscally responsible monarchy, has reportedly been applying increasing pressure on his younger brother to vacate the Royal Lodge. This 30-bedroom mansion, which Andrew has inhabited since his marriage and continued to occupy long after the divorce, has become a symbol of a bygone era of royal excess, an excess that the current king is no longer willing to subsidize. It's important to note the specific nature of King Charles's vision. Unlike his mother, who was known for her immense personal loyalty to her children and a desire to avoid family conflict at all costs, Charles is operating with a mandate of modernization. He views the optics of a non-working royal living in a state-owned mansion as a PR nightmare, especially during a cost-of-living crisis in the United Kingdom. The king is essentially asking, what is the value of the Duke of York to the modern crown? And the answer increasingly appears to be very little. Richard Fitzwilliam suggests that while Andrew seems to have begrudgingly accepted the inevitability of his fate, a move out of the grand estate he calls home, the situation regarding Sarah Ferguson is far more volatile. The Duchess of York, who famously had her Royal Highness, HRH status, removed following the divorce, has always been a survivor. She has navigated financial ruin, public ridicule, and the complex politics of the royal family with a certain tenacious flair. But now she finds herself at a crossroads. Fitzwilliams warns of an impending return to the spotlight for Fergie, suggesting that she is almost certainly going to attempt some sort of maneuver to engineer a public comeback. The stakes could not be higher. For years, Sarah Ferguson has been the Duke's most loyal defender, standing by him through the darkest days of the Epstein allegations. But loyalty, it seems, has its limits, especially when one's own survival is at stake. The Sun has reported that Fergie is already carefully considering offers that would allow her to tell her side of the story. The sentiment within her camp, as echoed by Fitzwilliams, is that Andrew has had his chance to tell the story. Now it's Fergie's time. This prospect is what Fitzwilliams and other royal insiders describe as a horrifying prospect. The fear is that Sarah, feeling sidelined and facing her own financial and social pressures, might go rogue. In the royal context, going rogue has a very specific and terrifying meaning. It refers to the path taken by Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. The idea of the Duchess of York embarking on a media blitz, be it through a memoir, a series of high-profile interviews, or a documentary, is enough to cause sleepless nights for King Charles and Queen Camilla. Think back to the impact of Spare. Now, imagine a version of that written by someone who has been inside the firm for nearly 40 years. Sarah Ferguson has seen the transition from the old guard to the new. She was there for the breakdown of the Wales' marriage, the transition of power, and the internal machinations of the palace during its most turbulent years. Unlike Meghan, who was an outsider looking in, Fergie was an insider who was cast out, then brought back into the fold, only to find the gates closing once again. Her perspective isn't just observational, it's institutional. The danger, as the source told The Sun, is that in her pursuit of a comeback and financial stability, Fergie might say things that cause profound embarrassment for the king, the queen, or other senior members of the royal family. There is a wealth of history and a multitude of secrets stored within the walls of the Royal Lodge and the wider royal archives that Sarah Ferguson has been privy to for over 3 decades. If she decides that her loyalty to the institution is no longer being reciprocated, the consequences could be explosive. What makes this situation particularly precarious for the palace is the admission from sources close to the family that there's not much they can do to stop her. Unlike Prince Andrew, who is still bound by certain royal protocols in the hope of some form of eventual rehabilitation, Sarah Ferguson is, in many ways, a private citizen. While she retains her title as Duchess of York, she is no longer a working royal. Her ties to the firm are emotional and historical rather than official. If she chooses to speak, the palace has very few levers of control left to pull. They cannot strip her of titles she has already lost, and they cannot silence a woman who has built a successful career as an author and media personality in her own right. To understand the gravity of this moment, we must look back at the trajectory of the Yorks' relationship. Their wedding in 1986 was a grand affair, a moment of joy for a monarchy that was already starting to show signs of the strain that would define the 1990s. Sarah was the breath of fresh air, a commoner with a zest for life that stood in stark contrast to the more reserved Diana, Princess of Wales. But the honeymoon period was short-lived. The pressures of royal life, combined with Andrew's naval career, which kept him away for long periods, led to the breakdown of the marriage. The 1990s were a decade of disaster for the Yorks. From the infamous toe-sucking photographs on the French Riviera to the mounting debts that once threatened to bankrupt the Duchess, Sarah Ferguson became a favorite target of the British tabloid press. Yet, through it all, she and Andrew remained remarkably close. When she was essentially exiled from the inner royal circle, most notably by Prince Philip, who reportedly refused to be in the same room as her for years, Andrew remained her steadfast ally. When he faced the greatest crisis of his life following the revelations about Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, Sarah was the one who publicly defended his character, often at the expense of her own standing. She famously called him the best man I know, a statement that drew widespread criticism given the nature of the allegations against him. But the world has changed. The death of Queen Elizabeth II in September 2022, who was known to have a soft spot for Andrew, and a tolerant, if distant, relationship with Sarah, has removed the ultimate buffer. The Queen Mother had left the lodge to Andrew, and the Queen ensured he could stay there. With her passing, the emotional contract that kept Andrew in the lodge has expired. King Charles III is a different kind of monarch. He is focused on the future of the institution, and that future does not appear to have much room for the controversies associated with the Royal Lodge. The King's desire to move Andrew into a smaller residence, Frogmore Cottage, the former home of the Sussexes, is seen by many as a pragmatic necessity, but by Andrew it is viewed as a humiliating demotion. Frogmore Cottage, while a beautiful and historic property in its own right, is a far cry from the 30-bedroom lodge. It has 5 bedrooms and was recently renovated at great expense by Harry and Meghan. For Andrew, moving there would be a public admission that his status has been permanently downgraded. It would signal that he is no longer a senior figure in anything but name. For Sarah, it would mean a significant reduction in the lifestyle she has worked so hard to maintain. For Sarah, the situation is even more complex. She has recently faced significant health challenges, including a diagnosis of breast cancer followed by malignant melanoma. These health scares often lead to a period of reflection and a desire to secure one's legacy and financial future. When one stares down their own mortality, the desire to set the record straight or to provide a financial safety net for one's children and grandchildren becomes paramount. If the Royal Lodge is no longer an option, and if her standing within the royal family remains in limbo, the temptation to monetize her story becomes almost irresistible. The phrase, "cast her adrift," used by Fitzwilliams regarding her charities is particularly telling. For years, Sarah used her charitable work, such as Children in Crisis, as a way to maintain a public profile and do good work. However, as the Epstein scandal deepened, many of the organizations she was associated with began to distance themselves, fearing the guilt by association that has plagued anyone in Andrew's orbit. Without her charitable platform, and with the friendly divorce narrative crumbling, Sarah is left with few options other than the Sussex route. The Sussex route, also a term now synonymous with high-profile, lucrative, and often critical media projects, is viewed with genuine dread by the royal establishment. Prince Harry's memoir, Spare, and the couple's Netflix docuseries caused significant damage to the reputation of the monarchy, particularly in the eyes of younger generations. The prospect of Sarah Ferguson, who has been an insider for even longer than Meghan Markle, providing her own truth is a nightmare scenario for Buckingham Palace. Fergie has a history of being a loose cannon in the eyes of the palace. Remember the 2010 cash for access sting by the News of the World, where she was filmed offering access to Prince Andrew for $500,000. That event nearly destroyed her relationship with the royals permanently. If she felt cornered now, the palace fears she might revert to those desperate measures, but on a much larger global scale. As Sarah carefully considers offers, the tension within the royal family is palpable. There is a sense that a dam is about to burst. The Duchess has always been known for her spontaneity and her tendency to speak from the heart, traits that made her popular with some but caused constant anxiety for royal minders. If she feels that she and Andrew are being unfairly pushed out or that their contributions to the family are being erased, she may feel she has nothing left to lose. And a person with nothing to lose is a dangerous entity in the world of high-stakes royal PR. The Royal Lodge itself stands as a silent witness to this unfolding drama. With its vast gardens and historic significance, it was once a place of family gatherings and royal tradition. Now it is the center of a bitter dispute over property, status, and the cost of maintaining a lifestyle that many feel is no longer justifiable. The king's insistence on the move is not just about money. It is about the optics of the monarchy in the 21st century. A prince who no longer performs public duties and who is shrouded in scandal cannot, in the king's view, continue to live in such a grand and expensive manner. Reports suggest the annual upkeep of the lodge is in the region of $1.5 million, a sum that is increasingly difficult to justify to a public struggling with inflation and economic uncertainty. But what happens to the iconic duo when the house is gone? If Andrew and Sarah are forced to live separately or in a much humbler setting, the very foundation of their post-divorce relationship will be tested like never before. Their closeness was facilitated by the grand scale of the Royal Lodge, which allowed them to live together but apart. The lodge is so large that they could effectively lead separate lives under one roof, meeting for tea or dinner but maintaining their own wings and privacy. In a smaller residence like Frogmore, that buffer disappears. The reality of their situation might become unbearable when they are forced into closer proximity without the grandeur that cushioned their unusual arrangement. Richard Fitzwilliam's assessment that he can't see it working reflects a growing consensus among royal watchers. The friendly divorce was a luxury afforded by wealth, space, and the protection of a powerful matriarch. Without those elements, the arrangement is likely to collapse under its own weight. And in that collapse, Sarah Ferguson may find that her only way forward is to look back and tell the world what it was really like to be the woman who stood by the most controversial prince in modern history. The implications for King Charles and Queen Camilla are profound. They are trying to navigate the early years of a new reign, attempting to modernize the monarchy while respecting its traditions. The last thing they need is a rogue duchess airing dirty laundry or providing fresh fodder for the tabloids. Yet, the choices they make regarding Andrew's living situation and Sarah's status will directly influence her next move. It is a delicate game of royal chess where one wrong move could lead to a public relations disaster. If the king is too harsh, he risks Sarah going rogue out of spite or financial necessity. If he is too lenient, he risks looking weak and out of touch with the public mood. The public's perception of Sarah Ferguson has always been a roller coaster. She has been the villain, the victim, the comic relief, and the loyal wife. Now she has the chance to be the narrator. Whether she chooses to use that power to protect the family she was once a part of, or to secure her own future at their expense remains to be seen. Her previous books, including her historical romances like Her Heart for a Compass, have been successful, but they are a far cry from the tell-all the public is hungry for. The publishing world knows that a memoir by the Duchess of York, detailing the Epstein years and the internal reaction of the palace, would be a global bestseller. As we watch this story develop, it is clear that the aftermath of the Jeffrey Epstein drama is far from over. It continues to claim casualties, and the world's most friendly divorced couple appears to be the latest. The transition from the Royal Lodge to an uncertain future is more than just a change of address. It is the end of a unique chapter in royal history. The Epstein scandal didn't just end Andrew's career, it ended the York brand as a viable part of the royal firmament. The question that remains is, what will Fergie say? If she does decide that now it's Fergie's time, what revelations will she bring to light? Will she speak of the internal family dynamics during the Epstein crisis? Will she shed light on the king's true feelings about his brother? Or will she focus on her own journey of survival and resilience? There are rumors that she has kept journals for decades. If those journals were to be adapted into a book, the level of detail could be unprecedented. From the private conversations with the late Queen to the true nature of the relationship between Andrew and Epstein, Sarah holds the keys to some of the most guarded secrets in the world. The horrifying prospect of her going rogue is not just about the gossip. It is about the institutional integrity of the monarchy. Every time a member or former member of the family speaks out, the mystique of the royalty is further eroded. The monarchy relies on a certain level of mystery and otherness. When that is replaced by the gritty details of legal battles, financial squabbles, and domestic disputes, the institution becomes just another celebrity family. For an audience that has followed the royal family for decades, this shift is both fascinating and deeply unsettling. We have watched these individuals grow, marry, divorce, and age. We have seen them through their triumphs and their most humiliating failures. The York story is a reminder that even within the most privileged circles, the consequences of one's actions, and the actions of those we associate with, eventually come due. Prince Andrew's fall from grace has been one of the most dramatic in royal history, and the impact on those closest to him is only now becoming fully apparent. Sarah Ferguson, ever the pragmatist, seems to realize that the old rules no longer apply. The gentleman's agreement that kept her in the royal orbit despite her divorce is being torn up by a king who prioritizes the survival of the crown over the comfort of his relatives. As she considers the offers on the table, the Duchess of York is not just looking for a paycheck, she is looking for a way to reclaim her voice. For years, she has been the supporting character in Andrew's drama. She has been the one to deflect, to defend, and to distract. Now, she has the opportunity to be the protagonist of her own story. But in doing so, she risks burning the very bridges that have kept her afloat for the last 30 years. If she speaks, she may lose her remaining invitations to royal events, her access to the Windsor estate, and the fragile peace she has maintained with the king. The Royal Lodge may soon have new occupants. Some speculate that Prince William and Catherine, the Prince and Princess of Wales, might eventually move in, though they currently seem content at Adelaide Cottage. Regardless of who moves in, Prince Andrew may find himself living a much quieter life in a smaller home. But for Sarah Ferguson, the quiet life has never been the goal. She is a woman of action, of words, and of grand gestures. Whether those gestures will be in service of the crown or in service of herself is the question that currently hangs over Buckingham Palace like a heavy fog. The commentary from Richard Fitzwilliam serves as a stark warning. The substantial change he describes is a sign that the old order is passing away. The friendly divorce was a product of a specific time and a specific set of circumstances that no longer exist. In the new era of King Charles III, there is less room for ambiguity and even less room for scandal. The slimming down isn't just about the number of people on the balcony. It's about the number of liabilities the crown is willing to carry. As we conclude this analysis, we are left to wonder about the future of the York family. Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie, who have navigated their parents' complex relationship with grace, now find themselves caught in the middle of a battle between their father, their mother, and their uncle, the king. They are well-liked members of the family, often seen at the side of their cousins William and Harry. The fallout from this rogue potential will undoubtedly affect them as well, potentially complicating their own roles within the royal family as they balance their loyalty to their parents with their duty to the crown. The story of Andrew and Fergie has always been one of contradictions. They were the couple who couldn't stay married, but couldn't stay apart. They were the royals who wanted the prestige but struggled with the responsibility. Now they are the couple facing the ultimate reckoning. The Epstein drama was the catalyst, but the underlying tensions, the financial instability, the search for relevance, the clash between tradition and modern expectations, have been simmering for decades. What are your thoughts on this unfolding situation? Do you think Sarah Ferguson is right to consider telling her story? Or should she remain loyal to the royal family despite the pressures they are putting on her and Andrew? Is King Charles being too harsh in his attempt to move Andrew out of the royal lodge? Or is it a necessary step for a modern monarchy? We would love to hear your perspectives in the comments below. This is a complex story with many layers, and your insights are always a valuable part of the conversation. The saga of the Royal Lodge and the Rogue Duchess is a reminder that the British monarchy is not just a political institution, but a deeply human one, filled with the same conflicts, loyalties, and fears that affect us all, albeit on a much grander and more public stage. The decisions made in the coming months will shape the legacy of the Yorks and the early years of King Charles's reign. We are witnessing the dismantling of a lifestyle that was once thought untouchable. We will continue to monitor this story closely as it develops. Will Sarah Ferguson follow the Sussex route, or will a compromise be reached behind the palace walls? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain, the era of the world's most friendly divorced couple has come to a dramatic and definitive end. The siege of Royal Lodge is not just about a house. It's about the survival of a reputation. The shadows of the past are long, and the pressures of the present are intense. For the Duke and Duchess of York, the Royal Lodge was a sanctuary, but now it has become a symbol of the very things they are trying to escape. As the world watches, the next chapter of their story is being written, not by royal biographers, but by the individuals themselves, as they navigate a world that is no longer willing to look the other way. The Epstein scandal remains the ghost in the room, and until it is fully addressed, the Yorks may never find the peace they seek. The Royal Lodge, with its 30 rooms and its vast history, stands waiting for its next chapter. And as the sun sets over Windsor Great Park, the world waits to see what Sarah Ferguson will do next. Will she be the woman who saves the Duke? Or the woman who finally tells the truth about the life they lived behind those grand, silent walls? The horrifying prospect for some is the long-awaited revelation for others. The story of Fergie and Andrew, it seems, is far from its final page. As we reflect on the words of Richard Fitzwilliams and the reports from The Sun, it is clear that the dynamic within the royal family is more fragile than it has appeared in years. The friendly divorce was a shield, but that shield has been shattered by the Epstein scandal and the change in leadership at the top of the monarchy. The very substantial change we are witnessing is the reality of a family and an institution trying to survive in a world that demands transparency and accountability. The days of never complain, never explain are being challenged by a new generation and a new set of circumstances. Sarah Ferguson's maneuver for a comeback will be a test of her skill and her standing. If she succeeds, she may find a new role for herself in the public eye, perhaps as a truth teller or a media mogul. If she fails, she risks losing the last of her royal connections and being permanently relegated to the fringes of society. For Prince Andrew, the move from the Royal Lodge represents a final loss of the status he held for so long. Together, they are facing a future that is vastly different from the one they imagined when they first moved into that grand estate all those years ago. The growing anger into Andrew's royal lifestyle, as mentioned in the original report, is a powerful force that the king cannot ignore. The public's patience for royal privilege without public service has worn thin. The Royal Lodge, once a private family home, is now a public point of contention. The dukedom that was once a source of pride is now a source of controversy. The king's decision to cut off Andrew's $3 million a year security allowance was the first major shot across the bow. Without that funding, Andrew is essentially a private citizen with an expensive house he can no longer afford to protect or maintain. In this environment, Sarah Ferguson's potential to go rogue is a wild card that the palace must manage with extreme care. The danger of her saying things that could cause embarrassment is real, but so is the danger of pushing her too far. It is a delicate balance, and the stakes are nothing less than the reputation of the British monarchy itself. The Yorks have always been the outsiders on the inside, and that position gives them a unique and dangerous power. The 30-bedroom Royal Lodge may soon be empty, but the stories it holds are just beginning to be told. Whether those stories are told in a courtroom, a memoir, or a televised interview, they will undoubtedly change our understanding of the world's most friendly divorced couple forever. The walls may be crumbling, but the history remains. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next video as we continue to track the evolution of the House of Windsor. As the Duchess of York carefully considers offers, the world holds its breath. The iconic duo has reached the end of the road, and the path ahead is uncertain. But if history has taught us anything about Sarah Ferguson, it is that she is never down for long. Her next move may be her most dramatic yet, and we will be here to cover every moment of it. Whether she becomes a bridge builder or a bridge burner, the Duchess of York remains one of the most fascinating figures in the royal orbit. The Royal Lodge stands as a monument to a different time, a time of excess, of secrecy, and of unquestioned privilege. As the Yorks prepare to depart, they leave behind more than just a house. They leave behind a narrative that they carefully cultivated for decades. That narrative is now being rewritten, and the author of the next chapter may very well be the Duchess herself. The friendly divorce was a masterpiece of PR, But reality has a way of catching up with even the most well-crafted stories. The Epstein drama, the Royal Lodge eviction, the potential tell-all, these are the threads of a story that is as much about the future of the monarchy as it is about the lives of two individuals. As King Charles and Queen Camilla navigate these turbulent waters, the actions of Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson will continue to be a focal point of public interest and royal concern. The siege of Royal Lodge is just the beginning of a much larger transformation. Thank you for watching, and thank you for being a part of our audience. We hope this script has provided you with the depth and detail you've come to expect from us. Stay tuned for more, and as always, thank you for your support. The story of the British royal family is the ultimate long-running drama, and we are honored to be your guides through its many twists and turns. The final word on the Yorks has yet to be spoken, but as Richard Fitzwilliams noted, the iconic days are over. What comes next is a new reality, one that will require all of Sarah Ferguson's resilience and all of Prince Andrew's fortitude. The world will be watching, and we will be here to tell the story. From the grand gates of Windsor to the global stage of public opinion, the journey continues. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your attention. We hope you found this video both informative and engaging. Until next time, this is our deep dive into the changing world of the British royal family. Goodbye for now, and remember to stay curious, stay informed, and stay tuned for the next update in this unfolding royal saga.